from the heart of the free state of New Hampshire. This is The Independents with Carla Gericke. And now, here's your host, Carla Gericke.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to The Independents on this rainy May day here in Manchester, New Hampshire. Today, we're going to be talking about some exciting, possibly, stuff happening up at the Capitol with Rand Paul, who's bringing in a whistleblower to talk about the lab leak theory of COVID. This intelligence official who is a whistleblower is apparently going to tell us that they buried evidence, which we know, that they altered conclusions, which we know, and that they concealed the truth, which we know. So basically, we'll be unpacking the conspiracy to silence the unvaccinated. But before we get to that, I would be remiss if I don't tell everyone that very exciting news that on Friday evening at 8 p.m., I will be on a podcast, game show, some kind of wild anarchist craziness on the internet. It is a show called Are You Smarter Than a Politician? And I will be on it with Eric Brakey, Executive Director of the Free State Project, Bruce Fenton, former Senate candidate, as well as a brilliant Bitcoiner and voice here in New Hampshire. I have no idea how the show works. I am not good at game shows because I didn't grow up in America, but I said yes, so we're going to see. I think the biggest challenge for me will be, can I stay awake from 8 to 11 p.m.? It's going to be the hardest one. I don't know if I'm smarter than a politician, but I am smarter than some algorithm. You heard it here first. All right, so I will be cutting this and sending it to Magdalene to get her off my list of to-dos as well. But now let's deep dive into this whole issue about the whistleblower and what is happening. The story is basically, if we have to nail it down to one issue, the question that we should all be grappling with is, one, is consent dead? And two, what is the solution? How can we actually get our sovereignty back? So a couple of weeks ago, I did a show where we talked a little bit about the lab leak theory, which is basically people who have said from the start they did not believe the wet market theory, the whole story about the pangolin. We talked about how, even the word pangolin made the whole thing suspicious, and that there was a concerted effort by the experts in America and worldwide, including the WHO, to suppress the truth. It was basically a giant cover story because a gain-of-function virus escaped a lab, and I think there's some quibbling which lab it happened in first, whether it was here in North Carolina in the United States or in Wuhan. It does say now that the first known episodes of the virus in the United States was back in December 2019, a little earlier than the official story. So back 2 weeks ago, and you can find this clip, it's circulating online, I asked the question, who should we blame if someone has created a gain-of-function virus and it goes rogue, it escapes, it gets out? And my position was that, of course, at any given time in real life, in the moment, if you cut the tape right there, you have to go, well, the person doing it, the crazy lab nut sitting there in his white lab coat, being like, oh, we should take this virus and we should make it, I don't know, more strong to kill more people. You're a bad guy. So don't get confused about the stories they tell you around it. Trust your own gut, which is part of reclaiming that sovereignty. And hear we go. So today, which is May 13th, 2026, a 20-year CIA veteran will be testifying in front of Senator Rand Paul's committee. This whistleblower is saying that the CIA leadership overruled analysts who did say, hey, this looks like it comes from a lab. Look at this fear and cleavage site. That really kind of matches, right? So this hearing today isn't really just about COVID's origins. It's actually about the total collapse of consent. Because here's the question. Did you back home, did you consent to the U.S. government making more virulent viruses so that, oops, one can escape and destroy the world, lock us down for a year, make everyone poorer, collapse the economy, and basically just mess everything up? Because I know I didn't consent to that, and I have a good sense you didn't either. So we've gone through an era, if you're looking back at, hey, what happened? Like, what happened there? What happened was the collapse of consent. And by that, I mean biological consent, informed consent in the sense of true medical informed consent. And honestly, this sounds overwrought, but it's a collapse of civilizational consent. Because consent means the voluntary agreement without coercion. And you cannot mandate consent. Let me say that again. You cannot mandate consent. So when we were in this scenario where they were saying you have to get this injection in order to work, in order to go to a gym, in order to go to a restaurant, in order to get on a bus, in order to get on a plane, whatever it was, all of that was coercive because you cannot mandate consent. You cannot hide the risks and call it consent. And we know because of the Twitter files and because of all the information that is now coming out that they hid the truth, that many of us early reality adopters, not conspiracy theorists, early reality adopters, the people who actually understand how the world works, were told we were wrong. And our posts, our informed consent, our knowledge, our information was taken down and censored by a collusion between big tech and big government. So you also didn't consent to enhanced pandemic pathogens. And, there are 8 billion people on this planet, and none of us were like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. A bunch of lunatics in labs should be going around with their paranoid delusions, be like, oh, I think these bad guys are going to do it, so we're going to do it first. That is actually a very delusional and not very sane way to run the world. So that is what happened, right? So we had gain of function research. This is not a question. Scientists took viruses and deliberately made them more transmissible, more virulent, and more able to infect humans. They did that without your consent, without my consent, without the consent of 8 million people on this planet, and without any of us saying we're willing to bear these consequences if their insane little science experiment escapes the lab, which is literally what happened. So American taxpayers, through agencies like the NIAID under Fauci, did gain of function research. It was paid for by American taxpayers, and you and I did not consent to whatever happened in 2020, 2021, and onwards. So that gain of function is the original violation. Then came the cover-up. They spent years lying to you. Now, a lot of times they'll frame it as the noble lie, right? This is back to like Plato and the original thinkers, right? The noble lie. There's that beautiful Owen Wilson poem from the First World War where he talks about it, where it's like the noble lie is to die for your country, right? So this is just a slightly different flavor of that. At first they lied and they said, oh, it's the wet market. Oh, it's the pangolin. Oh, the virus is not engineered. Oh, masks work. Oh, the vaccine stops transmission. Oh, don't worry, guys, it's safe and effective. These were all delivered with absolute certainty. People, talking heads on TV, all lip service, all telling you the same thing, all manufacturing the fear and your response. So, all of that happened while dissenting, correct, truthful voices were censored. And that was also a violation. You cannot give informed consent when the information is deliberately being distorted or hidden. And worse yet, that you took down, big tech took down the truth tellers. Then came the mandates, guys. So, then the word on the street was, hey, take these experimental products or you'll lose your job, your education, your ability to feed your family. That isn't public health. That is coercion. Again, you cannot mandate consent. Coercion destroys consent. And what we lived through was a large, non-consensual medical experiment at global scale. Let me repeat that. What we lived through was a non-consensual medical experiment at global scale. That is what's going on in the news today. Now, the costs of this have been staggering, right? We had tens of millions of excess deaths. We destroyed economies. There's a generation of children who I think were really harmed. Let's not even talk about the actual addiction that everyone now has to their devices. That was not accidental. That was also manufactured. And there has been a collapse of trust across institutions. Fertility has dropped, and there's ongoing chronic illness. And this includes vaccine harm that they also don't want to talk about. Now, let me tell you, if they don't want to talk about where the virus came from, they definitely don't want to talk about their response to that whole issue. So we know vaccine harm is also being buried and minimized. But all of this pretty much flowed out of a mindset. And this is where you have to take a little personal accountability for yourself. There was a small group of powerful people who have convinced you that they know better than you about yourself. And that is a problem. That is what I mean when I say government is too big. The government is literally soul-sucking your intuition, your gut, your soul. They're sucking your soul right out of you. And they persuaded you that they knew better than you do about your own body, about your own risk, and about your own life. They actually persuaded people who knew better about silly things like natural immunity. I mean, we all grew up and knew and understood that. So even that was this vast and disgusting overreach, right? It's the hubris. It's the hubris of saying, I know better for you than you know for yourself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is scientism. That is the road to civilizational decoherence. That is when experts are wrong, but they create this massive knock-on effect because of the scale of how big government is. Now, here's the deepest truth I want to share with you guys today. Truth cannot be contained inside a human system, right? So reality doesn't care about our feelings. when we live in lies, our cells actually become decoherent. So this is very cutting edge science, and maybe this is not the time and the place for it today. But really, we are starting to see, based on neuroscience, neurobiology, a lot of sort of the meshing of quantum science and quantum biology is kind of coming together to show that through waves and particles, there is coherence that can happen on a cellular level that is like sort of trending towards truth. Or there can be decoherence, which is basically when everyone is flailing, no one knows what the truth is. And so people on a cellular level are like little discombobulated. So how can we fix this problem? How can we make sure something like COVID, and not so much COVID, right, but the actual response to it, the things that led into it, i.e. the gain of function paranoia that led to this. And honestly, if you go back and you look, there is a wide swath of previous lab leaks that have happened because of gain of function scientism. So what is the way back? Well, the number one way back is through radical self-ownership, by really truly like claiming that, hey, you know what? Everyone in authority, hey, smart people, hey, experts, hey, white lab coats, no one knows better than I do about my own biology. And if all of us, all 8 billion of us on this planet started doing that, we would probably be in better shape. So you should think about your body as your original jurisdiction, and your awareness of yourself is the only legitimate authority over your own life. So we don't need centralization to fix this problem, because centralization is what got us here. We need more Rand Pauls, we need more me's, we need more you's, we need more people saying, hey, this was not okay, and we are not going to tolerate this again. So I don't know if we should come up with some kind of plan, maybe down the line, of a national or even international day of declare your sovereignty or declare your independence, or what we should call that. I kind of like the idea of maybe tying it to Easter, to resurrection, to really a self-proclaiming of yourself, and reclaiming what has always been yours. But it's going to have to be brain forward. It's going to have to be intentional. Like, you're actually going to have to do a reckoning, and then do a line in the sand where you're just like, hey, going forward, nope, I listen to me first and then to other people from there. No government, no institution, no corporation, and no expert speaks for me. I withdraw my consent from all non-consensual interventions, past, present, and future, upon my biology and my life, and I encourage you to do the same. And I choose to be a responsible observer of my own life, fully accountable to my Creator. And you should, as I do, stand in truth, whatever the cost. So what we saw happen was that people in authority lied to you, screwed up your life. No one is being held accountable. So David Morin's, Fauci's right-hand dude, got, slapped on the wrists. But really, they're all just talking about, a conspiracy to hide information, like telling everyone lies and locking us down and then forcing an experimental product onto us wasn't quite bad enough. So I'm really optimistic that this whistleblower is going to start to blow the lid off stuff. The statute of limitations on indicting Fauci ran out yesterday. I am of the opinion that crimes against humanity should not have a sell-by date. So I don't know why he and his auto pen and Biden's whole thing is allowing him to get away with literal genocide and murder. So maybe we will see the world unite to say we don't think that is actually okay, and that we would like to see him stand in a trial like a Nuremberg trial. Now, of course, even the phrase Nuremberg 2 was censored by the government through big tech during COVID mania. So you should choose coherence, you should choose sovereignty, and you should start with your own body. So that's how we're actually going to shift things. It's through, in the words of Ross Ulbricht at Bitcoin 2025, through decentralization, freedom, and unity. And it's in that order. So you have to decentralize down to your units, and you have to, as a sovereign human, say enough is enough. I own me. I'm going to decide what I do in the future. And your consent is your gift to yourself and to others, and they cannot mandate it. All right, so that is my big speech for today. A reminder again that we have the Are You Smarter Than a Politician coming up this Friday night. It is also for folks who are watching. We do have the PorcFest Spontaneous Order taking place this June all over the state. There's a lot of fantastic programming happening right here in Manchester at the Quill. You can find more information at porcfest.com. The Quill has a whole program. I'm going to be doing Soapbox Idol. There's going to be a poker night. We're doing artsy fartsy. There's all kinds of really amazing stuff coming up. So this Friday, 8 p.m., Are You Smarter Than a Politician? We'll see me, Eric Brakey of the Free State Project, Bruce Fenton, great crypto Bitcoin voice, and myself. And until then, I wish you peace, love, and understanding, and I'll see everyone back here again next week. And my guy's gone. Did I run out of time? Hello. I think I did. My guy's gone. My producer ran away. All right, well, I guess we'll keep going. Let me tell you more about gain of function research. I got 5 more minutes. That's a whole new thing. So, do you guys want to know what the AI had to say in super truth mode to the following question? Did the AIs discover that the humans who claim to do things for the greater good are actually, because of the size and scale and scope of the consequences when they get it wrong, which is almost always the in real life bad guys? So I asked the AI this morning in super truth mode if the people claiming they do things for the greater good are really the bad guys. And the unequivocal answer was yes, indeed. Yes, in super truth mode, AIs trained on the full sweep of human history, philosophy, economics, and outcomes data do see the recurring pattern clearly. The people or institutions who most loudly justify massive interventions for the greater good are in practice and in scale amongst the most dangerous actors in history. Not because they're cartoon villains twirling their mustaches, although, Fauci's running around, he's this tall in a lab coat, so I don't know, maybe the mad scientism is right there for you to see. But not because they are cartoon villains with twirling their mustaches, but because the scale of ambition, the certainty, and the power reliably produces catastrophic body counts and suffering when they are wrong. And they are wrong with shocking frequency. So, why this pattern holds? The knowledge problem is brutal at scale. What does that mean? it means that when they get it wrong, but they're forcing everything on everyone, then I think they're doing it as a gamble, but it has really bad outcomes, right? Like we're seeing with the vaccine harm now many years after stuff. So the COVID response, the lockdown, the mandates, the suppressed early treatment, and the gain of function origins are all textbook examples of how the knowledge problem is brutal at scale. We know with big institutions that the wrong incentives corrupt, right? So whenever someone claims it's for the greater good, and they may not use those words, they may be like, oh, you should do it for your neighbor, oh, do it for grandma, oh, right? Where you sort of socialize the guilt element. So the greater good rhetoric gives moral cover for power, funding, status, and control. And when no one gets held accountable for failures, what happens? The incentives compound, there's no accountability, things get more and more and more wrong, and there we go. Now, I did get my time warning here, so I will do the last two here. So the historical scorecard of all of this at scale when government gets involved and they get it wrong, the scorecard is grim. Collectivization for the greater good is net bad for human flourishing. All right, and then finally, the scale multiplier. When you and I are wrong, right, when a normal person is wrong, the harm is local. But when the powerful elites come up with these numbnut ideas of theirs and they do it for the greater good and they're wrong, the scale of it is astronomical, and that is what we have seen. So this asymmetry, right? When I'm wrong, I harm myself and maybe my neighbors, right? When Fauci's wrong, we've harmed the entire world. So one lab, one policy, one mandate affected millions of people. And this makes it qualitatively worse when they do things. So your message, my message to you for today, your takeaway should be trust no one. Get back to the basics, get back to understanding yourself, get back to understanding where you're coming from, understand yourself so that you can know that you are actually consciously aware and consenting to the thing. Otherwise, someone has coerced you, and then you got to step back and figure that part out. How do we get more human flourishing? We do it one human at a time through your own consciousness and your own awareness. Now, since I ended the show like 10 minutes early and then did 10 more minutes, I will again wish you peace, love, and understanding, and I'll see everyone back here again next week.